Final boss fights can sometimes make or break the public reception of a video game. Having a big climactic build-up to an unsatisfying conclusion can leave such a sour taste on a game, and I think that's why developers put so much effort and love into these said final fights. It's the final impression that a game leaves you on. It's some of the most memorable parts of a video game experience, and Kingdom Hearts is no exception to this. From Ansem to Xemnas to Xehanort, the Kingdom Hearts series is full of unforgettable final boss experiences. But the question I want to ask, and therefore attempt to answer today, is what's the best one, and along with that, where are all the final bosses compare to each other across the entirety of the series? Well, from the mobile games to peak number titles, join me as we rank every final boss in the Kingdom Hearts series. From trash to treasure, sit back and relax, as I really do mean every final boss. To start off with, the final bosses in question will all be set from the point of no return in the game, in which you walk through that door and are locked until those credits roll. As well as, since the KH series has a number of games with multiple playable characters and therefore multiple final bosses for each, I'm going to be accounting for each one separately. For example, Vin, Aqua, and Terra will all have separate rankings on this list. There's no grading system or score to go along with here per se. I'm just looking at the overall final fight itself. So the boss design, emotional feel, the music, the sense of accomplishment. All of these can have an impact, but I'll explain more of the details as we take on this list. Lastly, being a ranking video, I want to state that this is all my personal opinion and therefore should be taken as absolute fact with no questionability whatsoever, and if you disagree, then you're just flat out wrong. I'm kidding, you fucking nerds. Just believe what you want. We're kicking off the bottom of this list with Dark-Eyed from Birth by Sleep's secret episode. Exploring the realm of darkness using the Master Defender's Aqua was super cool and a really unique idea for an extra gameplay episode to add to Final Mix. And yeah, that's pretty much the only thing positive here. This boss is one of the worst designed fights in the series. I mean, if I could describe this in any way, it's pretty much like a great value brand mysterious figure. A lot of the same issue with that fight I have with this fight. His first two phases aren't horrible, phase 1 being actually kind of unique, where you're his prey in the darkness and you can even see when he's attacking from his literal point of view. Then phase 2 comes out and he's more visible now. He's a bit fast paced and around, but not enough that you can't get a shot like our magic in here and there. But that third phase, oh man, that shit is a nightmare. It's like this guy shotguns a case of white monsters and snorts a line of cocaine. It literally goes from like 20% energy to 100. He starts bouncing around the room, just firing off attacks left and right, leaving almost no room for an opening. Going back to the mysterious figure point, it's just like how in that fight, you're just constantly waiting for the right attack and the onslaught of his combos to get one surge in before you can get back to putting your thumb in torture dodging so you won't die. He even shoots off these gravity well attacks where if you do pause to try to get in a fire command or a shot lock, you're going to immediately get sucked into them and lose your health or at least just be interrupted. There's also just not as much emotional weight for this fight as the final episode with Terranort. That really felt like a better conclusion to this point in Aqua's story. In the secret episode, it just really is just an epilogue. It's a good thing you can only fight this guy as Aqua. Her ranged magic and shot lock playstyle is the only thing that gets you through it. But man, this boss is some ass. Alright, coming up next, I decided to just lump these two together since I pretty much feel the same about both. But Union Cross and Dark Road are something. I mean, on one hand, the emotional weight that the endings of both of these game stories hold is phenomenal, but on the other hand, it's a freaking mobile game. The combat and boss design aren't nearly as developed as something like KH1, 2, or 3. You just swipe, tap, and pray. Or in the case of Dark Road, you can even just auto-complete that mess. And this is coming from someone that actually did grind Dark Road to play this when it released. The only reason I gave it a step up above 0.2 is pretty much just because of that emotional weight that both of these hold, as well as the boss design and choices were pretty cool as well. I really like the Heartless design that Baldur transforms into, and the fact that you were fighting Ephemer and Skull, the literal leaders of Union Cross, was a pretty cool idea. But at the end of the day, it is a video game. I come here to physically play these fights, and they just don't have anything going for them in all that aspect. This is no disrespect to any Union Cross metal fanatics, it's just not for me. Okay, this one really hurts to place so low, but I just can't find myself to place it any higher. I love 0.2. I think it's such a fun side game that you can always hop back into for a quick couple hour grind on the weekend, being so short. It was a great tech demo for Kingdom Hearts 3, and the backstory of Aqua in the Realm of Darkness was such an enjoyed addition to her story, especially with the ending of her choosing to remain so that Mickey and the others can close the door to darkness. But Demon Tide, man, he's just so overdone at this point. If I'm being honest, it was really never that great to begin with. I think if Demon Tide was only in 0.2, it wouldn't feel as much overdone. A giant swarm of Heartless in the literal realm of darkness does make sense. But then they went and added it into Kingdom Hearts 3, twice at that fact, and with nothing changing, it's just boring. The guy only has like 3 attacks in his first phase, and then his second phase is kind of an even more milder version of Darkheid, where he's just zooming around and you have to wait before you can touch him. In all honesty, big bosses have never really been that great in the Kingdom Hearts series to begin with. Sure, they're cool and spectacle, but being just big damage sponges that you wait for their attack to be over so you can keep damaging them isn't the most fun loop in the world. There's no counter to his attacks or cheeky ways to force an opening, it's just damage, wait, and repeat till he's done. I will say though, teaming up with Mickey here is super cool with a team attack to chain him up and unload some damage. But in summary, there's just not a lot of depth to this fight, and at this point, it's super overstated its welcome. Okay, already while writing this script here, I'm noticing a pattern that I really don't like wild rampaging bosses, because once again, that is my exact problem with Armored Ventus and Dream Drop Distance. Don't worry, we'll have a lot more of Dream Drop Distance and specifically Riku later, but Armored Ventus is just not it at all. Technically, this is the final boss of Dream Drop Distance, but I really felt like some of the others we'll talk on later deserved some spotlight, so I'm kind of giving this the same treatment as like an epilogue or secret episode type boss. But anyways, the fight itself is more of what I've already said with Darkheid and Demon Tide. He flails around the arena throwing out attacks left and right, not really leaving much room for damage. This kind of forces you to just balloon spam and wait for him to get hit by them. Especially when he turns the room white and sends the dark orbs after you. I literally just flow motion jump around the room until the arena goes back to normal, because there's literally nothing else you can really do there. I think that's my problem with most of the Dream Drop Distance fights anyway. 90% of this game is just giant rampaging bosses that don't stun to attacks and that feels more tedious than it does fun to me. I will say, with decent levels, Armored Ventus is pretty weak in his damage and own defense, so that fight doesn't last that long. But then there's that weird shotlock dash battle at the end that I still don't really understand the timing of to this day. Like, it's not that hard, but on the other hand, I've definitely died a few times because the timing just isn't really apparent, at least not for me. I don't know, the fight is just meh. It doesn't feel like a final fight like some of the rest of the Dream Drop Distance fights do. Okay, at this point in the list, it's going to start getting a little more positive, but we still have a few rough points to talk through. The GBA version of Chain of Memories and therefore Reverse Rebirth is absolutely a classic novelty and in its own regard still holds up pretty well to this day. However, Riku's portion has definitely aged the most poorly, and that especially translates to the final Ansem fight. It's not necessarily bad in any aspect, it's just kind of mid all across the board. For starters, GBA Com is 100% the harder of the two between the GBA version and the remake, and as much as I actually adore the card system, as when you really take the time to learn it, it really becomes fun. It just doesn't hold up to the traditional combat of the series. With all this in mind, Ansem is just kind of annoying. He's extremely aggressive, so getting a combo in before he breaks your card is a struggle. Things like the Jafar enemy card can make it a bit more bearable, but that can't carry you through the entire fight. And as opposed to the Recon version, which we will get into a little more later, slights in dark mode are almost useless.
What the fuck is that?
Dark Aura particularly, which can carry most other bosses in the game, takes a dip in utility because the Guardian makes it pretty difficult to land a hit. Overall, the fight just kind of feels like be as offensive as possible and hope you can scrape by with a win in the end. To be fair, I have only beat this once in my life, so I don't have as much experience as some other entries on this list. Taking a swing back to Dream Drop Distance real quick, the Xemnas fight is, well, again, just kind of mid. I won't keep repeating the same points about Dream Drop Distance and its non-staggerable bosses as it all applies here, but also similarly to the last entry, Xemnas is extremely aggressive, except at least this can work more in your favor this time around with certain commands like Balloon and Counter Rush. The Dream Eaters can also take some of the aggro, which can be useful for setting up attacks or just healing from damage, but I think the main drawback for me is it's just Xemnas again, and a much lesser version of so. The whole build-up beforehand is definitely a nice touch, especially with the whole Friends Are My Power speech, where Sora admits that he knows the Keyblade didn't choose him, but still doesn't care. But it's enough to make the fight itself make me feel something special. Not to mention, Xemnas has this weird mechanic where any prolonged attacks like Faraga Burst, for instance, will cause him to just after image around like he's from Dragon Ball. It can make it really frustrating to get just small bits of damage here and there, causing the fight to just get prolonged out and boring after a while. I will give one big props to the reality shift portion where you cut up the buildings to build an opening to him, in which he finally is stunned for a bit for some big damage, but That was really cool and a nice callback to some KH2 final boss stuff. However, with all my previous issues with Dream Drop Distance bosses in mind and just Xemnas' design not having any wow factor, I can't find myself to place it any higher. Circling right back around to Chain of Memories, but the remake this time around, and I'm starting to think that the Ansem and Chain of Memories just isn't that well designed. I find the remake Riku story a bit more fun and polished with the dueling mechanic, and Ansem just overall feeling a bit more balanced and less aggressive this time around. But unfortunately, it kind of slingshots back in the other direction this time, becoming a bit too easy. I mean, Recom Ansem can be taken down in like a few Dark Aura slates, no problem, since the Guardian isn't nearly as much of a problem this time. And the dueling mechanic, while extremely fun, isn't that hard to win. You can just spam your cards until they all break, and reloads aren't an issue with Riku's instant reload mechanic. I may be coming across as indecisive here, and I can see why. On one hand, Ansem is too hard and aggressive, then he's all of a sudden too passive and easy, but I think that's just the problem with the fight itself. With the card system and how they had to adapt the 2D GBA fight to a 3D format, I don't really think that there's much to work with. And don't get me wrong, the Riku story is extremely fun. I mean, 9-year-old me was geeking over using dark powers for once. Also, from a narrative perspective, it kind of doesn't hit hard knowing that Riku is fighting to release Ansem's hold on his heart, but we know it doesn't actually get rid of him, and Riku still struggles with this in Kingdom Hearts 2 and onward. I feel like the DDD Ansem fight was much better done in this regard, and I'll have a lot more to say about that later on. I will say that anime clash at the end of the fight and the cutscene after, though, hits hard. I jump in excitement every time I watch. It's so peak Kingdom Hearts anime type shit. Okay, I'll be honest, the next like 5 entries on this list are all really hard to pick and choose. I could probably change up depending on the day you ask me, but that's just the nature of a list with over 20 entries. GBA Chain of Memories Marluxia. Man, it sucks because on a lot of levels this fight is so cool. For starters, I think Calm is clearly better designed for Sora's playthrough and kind of feels like Riku was an extra thought that they added towards the last third of development maybe. Because Sora just has so much more options, being able to actually build his deck and change playstyles around, as well as the design for Marluxia here is so sick. Like I was saying earlier, the GBA Com version just has that novelty to it that I can't explain. But yeah, it kind of all boils down to that card system again. It just doesn't compare much to the rest of the series. And with GBA Com, you're kind of limited to the builds you can do in this fight because it all kind of depends on the card values and types that you have. The easiest method is to just use Raids to destroy the blades, and then use a combo of Maleficent and Hades to boost damage for the rest of the fight. But even with all this being said, it's not easy and does require some practice. I think that's why I have it at least this high though, because this feels like the first boss with some in-depth design to it, with having to destroy his scythes to open him up, and then you can kind of manipulate him to breaking his card to stun him for a combo and repeating. Like, there's clearly some thought in how you're supposed to go about it instead of just make the boss attack a lot and hope they find openings. So, the one and only time Recoded makes this list, which sucks because man I love this game. I still stand by that Recoded has the best gameplay of the DS style Kingdom Hearts games. Sure, the story is lackluster, but I always recommend actually playing this just because it is actually fun. But for Recoded, we have Data Roxas as the final boss, and yeah, it's really fun. As I was saying with the last entry, this is where the fights on the list start to feel like they have a bit more in-depth design to them. I'd go as far to say that this Data Roxas fight almost feels like a console KH fight at its core in a DS game. You wait for what he's going to do to find that opening and close him when you can. And unlike the DDD, it actually feels rewarding because he staggers, allowing you to get off your combo that you earned. His DM is also straight out of Days, so the visual is pretty cool, but pretty simple to dodge as well. I think that the only thing really drawing this fight back is the fact that the story with Recoded doesn't have much fire to it. Like, I'm not going into this fight emotionally propelled or engaged, it's strictly the gameplay that keeps me here. Being a video game, that's super important obviously, and enough to propel it halfway up the list, but it's a drawback worth noting. All in all, it's a fun fight, but nothing spectacular to put it over some of the rest later on. But if you haven't played it, I do highly recommend. Okay, finally seeing some Birth by Sleep on the list. Just a heads up, Birth by Sleep is my favorite side game in the series, so I may be a bit biased, but I'll do my best to explain along the way. For starters though, Aqua definitely has the weakest bosses of the three main stories. Braig, who is kind of a pseudo DDD boss, just bouncing around firing without any method of openings and counters, and Ventus Vanitas, who is pretty much just another Vanitas, who is already one of the weaker fights in the game. You can never really get a combo in on him without him disappearing with a counterattack every 2 to 3 hits. Luckily we have Aqua to play with these two fights though. Her barrier helps tremendously for Braig, and Cartwheel is a really good dodge for getting past Vanitas. But a lot of this placement just boils down to me loving the combat design for Birth by Sleep. For starters, this is the first of the command deck system, which went on to dominate the side games from here on and is super fun to use. But also, I love the shot locks, and the form changes and even D-links are really fun to use. They just experimented with so much in this game, and I feel like everything was fun in its own regard, even if the traditional combat of KH1, 2, and 3 is still more preferred. There's also that huge emotional weight of having to fight Ven, who's taken over by Vanitas. At this point, if you follow the recommended order, you've had time with all 3 characters, so you really feel and relate directly with Aqua because you want to save Ventus as well. In summary, gameplay super fun, but the boss design, not as much. But we got more BBS to come, so don't worry. Hey, at this point I try to find a clever way to remind you guys to like and subscribe, but I literally couldn't think of one. So yeah, please do that. Anyway, back to the video. Okay, so as I mentioned a while back on the list, I'm kind of making a stretch for some DDD bosses so I can highlight some of their better ones. For clarity, I consider Xemnas Sword's final boss, Ansem Riku's final boss, Young Xehanort the final boss of Dream Drop Distance as a whole, and Armored Ventus kind of an epilogue. But that brings us to number 11 with Young Xehanort, and yeah, this fight is just so cool. For starters, we have a Dream Drop Distance boss that can actually stagger for once. So, like I was saying on Recoded, it makes the opening you find feel a bit more rewarding when you can actually get some damage off. You're also using Riku, so having Dark Barrier and Roll makes it much easier to handle when he gets aggressive, with his slashes allowing you to get some nice counters in between. I even actually really like the fake out ending where you have to destroy the clock before he rewinds time to restart the fight. Because honestly, with all the strong attacks Dream Drop Distance has, it's not that difficult to handle, and it's a really cool twist to that fight, especially when we learn how much power over time the ending of this game focuses on. There's also huge stakes, as Sora, the main character, is the one that needs help for once, and it really makes you feel like that drive going into it. But if I'm being completely honest with you guys, one reason this fight is so high is because that Young Xehanort theme is a f***ing banger. Oh my god, have you heard this mess? It's like they lit a violin on fire and began shredding like the devil came down to Georgia looking for a keyblade to steal. It's peak! Yeah, good fight. Okay, call me crazy all you want, but yeah, Days of all games has made it this high on the list. And admittedly, as of making this video, I just finished the Melon Mix remake of Days, so there may be a bit of recency bias, but hear me out. To start off by addressing the elephant in the room, yes, I know the gameplay of Days can be a bit wonky sometimes, and especially with the panel system kind of limiting you along the way, it can be a bit annoying. However, these are the final fights we are discussing here, and at this point, you've already been pretty geared out for Roxas, and so the panel system isn't as much of a hindrance anymore. I was discussing this with a friend recently, but after finishing Melon Mix Days, I realized that Days is actually really fun once Roxas is geared out. It's getting to that point that is the struggle, and shit bosses like Ruler of the Sky don't help in that regard. But at this point, you have all your movement, all your magic, all your Keyblade gear, and levels built out, and it's actually where the gameplay takes a turn and starts to be super fun. Now, with the boss fight itself, I think we all know the emotional weight that it has, and that definitely propels it high on the list. Roxas has just left the organization but still feels lost on what to do next. Then, confronted by Xion, he's forced into a decision to end her life that he doesn't feel comfortable doing. And that death scene afterward is still enough to make a grown man cry. I don't care how many times you watch it. But the fight itself isn't horrible, though it could use a little work. I think the Wonderland and Agrabah phases are actually pretty well designed, and the final Twilight Town phase is still pretty okay, but admittedly a bit rough on some parts. Her Halloween phase though, with that Ragnarok spam, is pretty garbage. I won't try to deny that. She doesn't really stagger, but she does kind of sit still after huge attacks, allowing for some combos, which is still better than the rampaging giants of DDD, because at least here you do still have that rewarding factor of dodge a hit and getting a combo off. I'm also roping in the Riku fight with this, as they're kind of all one large fight since you can't change gear or save the game in between, and yeah, getting to use that dual wield Roxas for a bit is peak in Kingdom Hearts. I think we can all agree on that. Riku himself, however, is kind of mid in design. He's really not that hard and kind of feels like an epilogue fight similar to Armored Ventus. Last we will see of card games, but coming in at 9 is going to be Rechain of Memories. Again, call me crazy all you want. I know Recom isn't the most popular of the KH games, but this final battle war is really freaking cool and fun once you really understand the card system in Recom. Honestly, most of this decision comes from the second phase, as first phase isn't really anything special. Marluxia is on the back of his Reaper demon thing and will attack with one card at a time, never using any slights in this portion of the fight. Considering this, throwing out any sleight of your own is pretty much guaranteed to hit, so it's not that hard. And honestly, the arena isn't that special either, being just a slightly altered version of all the other orc fights in the game. However, that second phase hits hard, because this is one of, if not the coolest arenas for a boss in any Kingdom Hearts game. To top it off, you have a theme like Lord of the Castle playing here, which is also arguably one of the best boss themes in the series. Along with this, Marluxia means way more business here than even his first solo fight. This man doesn't even move the entire fight, he's just standing there throwing deadly blows one after the other. This time having broken slates like Doom and Omni Laser, which have cost me more runs than I can count. It's just giving you a peek of the energy that KH2's final boss had. Kind of like a huge anime arc antagonist build up with a huge over-the-top just cool fight to finish things off. Of course, it is still a card system, which is always going to be less preferred. And like I said, that first phase really drags it down a bit, but I think that the final Marluxia fight is more than deserving to be in the top 10 on this list. Okay, just get ready for some Birth by Sleep glaze, because the next few entries are really going to show how much of a sucker I am for this game. Birth by Sleep is so good. It's my favorite non-number title in KH, and I'm not afraid to die on that hill. So with that, number 8 is going to be the finale for Ventus against Vanitas with the broken Keyblade. And yeah, one thing you guys are going to realize is that I am a sucker for a cool boss arena. It really sets the tone for the fight, and I just love when devs put effort into a good boss arena. To start, similarly to Recon, the first phase with normal Vanitas is really dragging this one down. I would probably say it's the best BBS finale if it wasn't for this. It's just normal Vanitas, and yeah, normal Vanitas in this game is pretty annoying. You can't even get a good combo without him after imaging away, so on replays it always feels like I'm just tolerating this portion until the fight I'm really here for. However, I will say having Ventus with the armor and no helmet was fun. But the final Vanitas is something completely different. I mean, you're fighting on the literal dive to heart that links the characters involved. Then there is so much story and emotional build-up because Ventus is willing to destroy his own heart just to take down Vanitas as well. And yeah, let's not forget that killer comeback.
It's always about your friends, isn't it? At least I have some.
The fight is also more bearable than normal Vanitas in my opinion. He has a bit more fair openings and doesn't appear to disappear as much, but maybe I'm crazy in that regard. Vanitas' attacks are super flashy and fun to dodge, and it's really cool to see the Keyblade in its broken stage. It kind of represents how both Vanitas and Ventus are broken and need to join to be whole again, but of course, Ventus won't let that outcome happen. And just to finish off, maybe a hot take, but I love the D-Link finish of this fight. To repeat the same stuff, the arena is really awesome how you're destroyed their heart and now they're just in a void together, representing how Ventus' body and heart are on the verge of complete destruction. The attacks are super cool and devastating. You get a Dragon Ball Z style beam clashes with this stage, and the final hit with Ventus zooming around in light to slam down with a final slash was epic. It was all just so cool and fun and has so much emotional weight to it. It really sets the starting bar of this list on how peak Kingdom Hearts fights can be. Rolling right through more Birth by Sleep here, I gave Terra's finale the slight, and I really do mean slight edge here. For starters, you're not fighting Vanitas as much here, and admittedly Vanitas is the more annoying of all the final fights with how he disappears and only one defeat is needed. But kind of like with Ventus, this fight has so much emotional weight and power to it. I'd say that it has the most so of the three main stories in the game. Terra has been manipulated the whole game to the point of helping kill his own master, and he's had enough at this point. We even get a Super Saiyan-esque darkness power-up scene just showing how much rage he's really taking Terra over here. Then even once he's defeated, his body is taken over and heart is destroyed. His mind, or more accurately his will, refuses to give up. The literal definition of a man too angry to die. Then we cap it all off with Terra taking the KH2 lingering will pose, donning his cape and swearing that he will remain here until he can take revenge on Xehanort and set things right. Say what you want about Terra and his character and actions in the game, but he truly had the most gruesome ending, losing his heart and body, having his mind and will so strong he's forced to remain until he can set it all right again. But along with all of that, the gameplay is also super fun. While Terra is the most clunky to play of the trio, I think he has the best attacks overall, which make for a really fun playthrough as long as you are set up nicely. Old Man Xehanort also felt way more balanced to fight against compared to Vanitas and Braig for the others. You could actually get good staggering rewarding combos against him without any cheap tricks. And then we get to Terranort, who once again was such a cool arena with the orange and spectral chains. For those that don't know, my favorite color is orange, so naturally I'm gonna gravitate to this one. Now, Terranort does kind of gravitate back to that annoying factor, but not nearly as bad as Braig or Vanitas. But also, I just love how you are literally fighting yourself now. Every move that Terranort uses in this fight is a move that Terra has access to in this game, or at least some variant. He has Quake, a Dark Ars Solemn, the Dark Volley Shotlock, and even Terra's Ultima Cannon Shotlock. I just love that extra detail that he really did take over Terra's body, and they translate that really well directly into the gameplay. I just wish he wouldn't freaking heal himself! Rounding off the last of Birth by Sleep and getting close to the top 5 is the final episode version of Terranort. I'll make this one plain and simple. There are 2 reasons this fight is as high as it is. 1, Aqua is easily the best controlled character to play as in the game and has some really cool commands and attacks to go along with it, so playing as her for this section is a huge plus. And 2, this fight has easily the most emotional way and ending of any Kingdom Hearts game in the series, hands down. Aqua has lost her master and both her best friends, and so seeing a chance to save at least one of them, she jumps at the opportunity but is forced to lock her home away to protect the one that is currently beyond her saving. Then in the fight itself, she tries to wake Terra but realizes that he's too far controlled. So after one of the more badass lines in the game where she declares herself master and demands Xehanort return her friend, the battle begins. At this point, you've spent time with all 3 characters in this game. You've seen their stories and unfortunately their tragic endings. So now with one hope in this darkness, the wait is all here to save Terra and get at least one happy ending. Unfortunately, however, of course, there is no happy ending, and Aqua is given the most tragic ending of all, sacrificing herself to give Terra a chance back at the light that she is cast into the realm of darkness. And considering this is a Disney game, it just hits hard that there isn't a single happy ending at all. The fight itself is fun though. Terranort Phase 1 is pretty much identical to as he is in Terra's story, and it's really cool to have the Guardian appear again in Phase 2. There's also a really cool team attack in Phase 2 where Terra kind of breaks through the darkness for a small bit to help Aqua fight back, and I think that is such a cool detail. Last small little detail, I do like that the fight takes place in Radiant Garden, which is where the trio first teamed up in the game, so it's kind of symbolic in that matter. But overall, the reason this fight is here is because you want Aqua to win for more reasons than it being just a video game. You want Aqua to win because you actually care about the outcome here. There's just so much emotional build up to a crazy finale, and it deserves to be our number 6 spot.
Quick recap, because number 9 was number 8, which you'll need to know the context for this next number because it's number 5.
The Riku Final Ansem fight in Dream Drop Distance is personally the best example of a Dream Drop Distance fight done right. I've said a lot on this list, but a lot of the fights in Dream Drop Distance are just giant sponges flailing around the arena that don't stun to hardly anything. And with that, I have absolutely shared my disdain towards this boss design. However, something is just different about the Ansem fight that I feel they really nailed it here. You start off with a solo fight where you have to regain your Dream Eaters through Reality Shift after doing a certain amount of damage in a certain time frame. The fight itself is kind of a diet version of the KH3 Sora vs Ansem fight, and with Dream Drop Distance specifically, it's a lot like the young Xehanort fight in that it feels more humanoid with how you can actually find openings and stun the boss, unlike other Dream Drop Distance fight, which I have stated already. But then we change to the giant Guardian final phase, and honestly, I really love this take on a giant tanky boss. He still flails attacks out a lot, but this time he's stationary, so he's not chaotic around the field, making it harder to land a hit when you've earned one. It's a nice balanced cycle of waiting out the attack and coming in on the opening, kind of similar to the clock phase of young Xehanort, but obviously way cooler and better designed. The arena is also very cool, nothing overwhelmingly satisfying or anything, but it's always cool to have a darkness themed arena, and with fighting Ansem, it of course matches perfectly. I think I also just feel this is a better written version of the fight in Reverse Rebirth. At this point, Riku has already taken the path back to light, While his darkness remains and Ansem with it, Riku has learned to let that be a part of him rather than shun it out. This is doubled down with how Riku tells Ansem before the final phase that he is a part of Riku's heart now, and not the other way around. So instead of like in Reverse Rebirth where it feels like he is casting Ansem out, now it feels like he is making that darkness a part of him and accepting that. It all ends off with a beautiful full circle moment with Riku holding up his Keyblade, remembering how even as a kid he always wanted the strength to protect what matters, and now he finally has it.
Strength.
To protect the things that matter.
Just scraping out of the top 3, we have our first numbered entry on the list. Kingdom Hearts 1 is absolutely epic and nostalgic, and it clearly shows with how high it's made it here today. And naturally, due to the general preferred combat style of the numbered titles, it's easily going to shoot to the top of the list with that alone. To start, it's all brought full circle by being placed on a destroyed Destiny Islands. There's even a nice detail of things disappearing as you walk up to them, showing how things are different now and it's not the peaceful island it once was. You're then thrown into a fight with an Ansem fight, including Donald and Goofy, followed by a Dark Side and solo Ansem fight. The Dark Side obviously isn't noteworthy, however the Ansem fight is really fun, and honestly the solo version is easily one of my favorite bosses in the game. Ansem just has a bunch of huge cool darkness attacks that are really fun to react and dodge. Yes, the submit attack is pretty annoying, but it's well telegraphed enough that dodging it is pretty simple. After this, we're thrown into a dark void, and the Final Fantasy-esque portion of Kingdom Hearts really shows, as there is a giant heartless monster controlled by Ansem that we need to systematically take down. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the giant Ansem portions, as I am more preferred to the more size relative enemies. However, this Ansem is still very manageable and has a very slick design, so I'll let this one slide. I do, however, love the idea of Donald and Goofy being taken and you have to slowly take down the ship Heartless looking for them, calling back to the Sora's "my friends are my power" mentality. You kind of slowly hit the ship harder and harder before destroying its core and leaving just Ansem to be taken down. Also, the Dark Guardian design here on the ship is by far one of the coolest enemy designs in the series. I honestly wish we could have seen more of this type of enemy design. And of course, to top it all off, it's Kingdom Hearts 1. The story in this game is so well written and emotional and heartfelt. The line of light always being within the deepest darkness has such a good build up, with Sora overhearing it earlier in the game, standing his ground with it in the first Ansem fight, and ultimately using that to defeat Ansem in the end. Kingdom Hearts 1 is still one of the best written stories in the series, and it really shows in the build up and payoff of the finale here. I do have a few negatives that I feel are noteworthy, as they do take this out of the top 3 for me. For starters, half of the finale is flight combat, which, while cool and spectacle, is very limiting in gameplay as you're cut off from a lot of your moveset. Also, kind of like I was alluding to before, I don't particularly love the giant Ansem and the ship face fights. They're very manageable with KH1's combat, but they are just giant unstaggerable enemies throwing out attacks left and right, which to me is always less preferred than to say Riku Ansem or any other humanoid boss. KH1 really set the standard for final boss spectacle in the series, and as you can tell by this list, it still holds up to this day over 20 years later. Okay, finally kicking off the top 3 of the list. Kingdom Hearts 3's finale is extremely good, and a lot of that admittedly is due to the combat design. Kingdom Hearts 3 has the best combat in the series, and I will die on that hill. Kingdom Hearts 2, of course, is a very close second, but I think that so far, Kingdom Hearts 3 has the best design combat that we've had in a Kingdom Hearts game so far, and I really hope they use that as a building block for Kingdom Hearts 4, whenever the that comes out. But with the fight itself, I mean, it is the build-up of the entire saga. The old man Xehanort, who has pushed the entire plot along, is finally getting his ending that has been built up over the last 15 years. Scala ad Kalam is a beautiful world, and Xehanort being able to control the landscape to his liking was an excellent touch, as it adding such a cool spectacle to the game that we hadn't seen yet. Also, the goat armor that Xehanort has is, in my opinion, even better than the No Heart armor. I just love how dark and dreary it looks, even connecting to the goat on the No Name Keyblade that he utilizes. So we tear through the world, destroying more and more as we go, but then we get to the real finale. Xehanort loses the armor and dons the Keyblade for the final battle. We meet at the top of the tower to start, but then he transforms the arena into a sick light runic platform in the sky with Kingdom Hearts looming in the sky. I've said this a lot throughout the video, but a good arena is something I am a huge sucker for. And for me, this arena is my absolute favorite in the series. There is so much detail in the design with all the symbols and the runes, and the skybox with the Kingdom Hearts in the background is so beautiful. I also particularly love the DM arena he has after the Rage Form phase of the fight. It's calling back to that Organization 13 throne room, and having Xehanort all shrouded in darkness just straight up aura farming in the middle of the fight is so peak, I can't say that enough. But with the gameplay side of things, Xehanort truly feels the most powerful he ever has in this fight, which is important as he's wielding the Keyblade, which has been hyped up for so long at this point. It's like he has complete control over the dimension that you're fighting in, being able to warp around at lightning fast attacks, rain down dark meteors, and even steal the light from Sora to force his dark form out. Then, to top it all off, once he's been defeated, a reaction command pops up to end the fight. And as another Dragon Ball Z-esque beam clash begins, the game actually fakes you out, making you think that he died for a second. I absolutely love fake out deaths in games, as long as they are well written and not overdone. So you're floating there waiting for the retry to pop up, and realizing it's not coming, you begin to start pressing buttons to figure out what's wrong. Sora's heart starts beating and you can hear the echoes of Donald and Goofy calling him back to the fight. It low-key kind of feels like you as the player are giving Sora CPR of a sorts. It's kind of weird to say it like that, but it really does feel like you're starting his heart again and bringing him back to the fight to finish things. It's all just so well designed and written, and I absolutely love it. The only real negative I have is that I don't particularly care for the 13 Xehanort mob fight at the beginning, but that fight is still far from a bad fight. It's just kind of mid compared to the rest of the finale. But there is one more KH3 finale that we need to discuss. Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. Okay, yes, I do think that the finale of Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind is better than base KH3. I'm even specifically referring to the Goatnor fight in Remind over the final Xehanort fight in base. However, if you include a bunch of other portions of the finale, it gets even better. I honestly don't have any negatives, so excuse me if I'm glazing Remind a bit here, but it's just all so peak. You have the Guardians team-up fight, which, while admittedly is all gimmick and not much combat, is just so cool to see all these interactions with characters like Riku and Terra Keyblade bumping, Ventus and Roxas giving each other props, and even Aqua telling Lee to shut the hell up and get back to the fight. Then we have the solo Mickey portion, which is just peak Michael Mouse moment. He has to fight off all 13 Xehanorts on his last leg, and while Sora is kind of helping, it really shows how powerful of a Keyblade wielder Mickey is in this series. I mean, the man... Mouse? I don't know. Anyway, the guy is injured and still manages to whip out a light beam the size of a skyscraper and literally vaporize everyone around him. There's also the cool KH2 callback with the Keyblade seal, which is a nice touch, but god, what really tops it all off is the final fight against Goatnord. I genuinely think that this tops the final Xehanort from base game. It has all the same things I talked about there, but just better. The arena is still the same style, but I way more prefer this color and shading style. He's also in his goat armor, which I've already spoken about before, so I won't beat it into the bush, but I also love the detail where you kind of break his armor halfway through the fight. Then you have his DM with all the meteors giving a literal apocalyptic style ending to this fight. Like, seriously, when does Xehanort even have time to find the black materia to pull this shit off? This fight is just so amazing in design, combat, atmosphere. I really do just love... Huh? What? Oh, sorry guys, corporate is reminding me of something. Oh. Yeah, you get to play as freaking Kairi. Kairi is so fun to use. She has a barrier guard, which is already a huge plus. She has a Naruto flying Raijin closing attack with her Keyblade. Her shot like has her raining down light meteors everywhere, kind of really pulling from the fact that she is a heart of pure light. And the team-up attack with Sora is so beautiful, especially with the touch that the feather at the end has a random memory between the two. Again, I genuinely have no negatives here. This entire portion of the game is just so peak Kingdom Hearts. Well, I guess it can't be peak if it's number 2, but speaking of number 2, I think it's time we get on to the real peak finale. This shit is so peak, bro. We all have our differences on KH2 versus KH3 and all, but this finale... I mean, this just means something to me, man. As a kid, I was freaking screaming going through this part. I mean, you start off the fight by slicing buildings. You can't make this mess up. Then, kind of like Kingdom Hearts 1, you're systematically climbing up this giant nobody enemy, taking it down one by one as you go. And once you get to the top, you have Zenith in his no-hard armor freaking aura-farming the whole fight from a chair. He has all the abilities of every org member, and he's throwing them at you left and right. It's all just one big anime-style spectacle ending, and the best part is, this is only the first half. We then get surprised with the fact that Riku and Sora get trapped behind as we learn Zenith still has more up his sleeve. As we don this random flying vehicle and chase after a freaking dragon, we have a dragon in Kingdom Hearts. This is so freaking cool. P.S. Yes, I know Storm Rider exists. Shut up. Let me glaze my favorite PS2 game. The dragon fight is very different, of course, but I kind of feel the same way about it as I do the team-up fight in Remind's finale. While this isn't as cool as that one specifically, it's one big cinematic gimmick fight that, while obviously lacking in actual combat, makes up for in sheer spectacle. After this, we're back to combat, but this time they mixed combat with gimmick and spectacle. As in this fight, Sora has max growth abilities and infinite arrow dodges so that he can fly around the arena at will. Oh, and let's not forget to mention that we are back to cutting freaking buildings again. And this time, we are launching them back at the giant dragon we were just fighting. I cannot make this up. The fight itself is pretty similar to the first Armored Xemnas, so nothing much to go over. But once again though, the arena is so beautiful and the skybox background is really detailed and well designed. I just absolutely love it. So then we're brought to the true finale, and one thing I actually love about this is it kind of simplifies more here when compared to the rest of the finale. Like, we just got slicing buildings, fighting dragons, and gigantic spectacle, but Final Xemnas is just Sora, Riku, and Xemnas in a void of nothing. And while I still think that arena is very cool and well designed, there's something poetic about having the finale big boss of the game after so much spectacle in way more simplistic. But this fight still does have its fair share of spectacle. I mean, for starters, if Sora gets captured, you get to play as Riku for the first time in the series outside of the card game on the Game Boy Advance. And I think we can all agree how hyped this got us. I mean, there's just no denying that Riku, he's a sexy guy. But the fight itself is back to that humanoid-style combat that is no doubt the best of the series. Very rewarding and satisfying to pull off counters and staggers and just flows with the combat very smoothly. But to finish it off, we all know it. The freaking dome. Xemnas covers the field in a giant laser dome in a last-ditch effort to rid of the two. But then we're treated with easily the best reaction command combo in the game as we zoom around deflecting the lasers back, getting faster and faster as we go until we get something straight out of an anime. To top it all off, the game at this point is just like, yeah, you earned this win. Enjoy watching Sora just beat some ass. Because we get a mini end-game play cutscene of Sora borrowing Riku's Keyblade, absolutely shredding Xemnas as if he's cheese on a salad at your local Olive Garden.
Just tell me when.
All to finish it off with a dual Keyblade beam right through the chest to finish the fight. That nice little build-up of Sora aiming and giving Riku that nod as they join together for the final blow to finish things off. The KH3 finale is like a core memory of Kingdom Hearts fan, and especially for those who played this as kids. Like, I remember at Thanksgiving one year forcing my 20-year-old cousin to watch my 10-year-old self play this final fight because I just thought it was that cool and wanted to show it off. I think that Kingdom Hearts 2's finale just represents what most of the fandom really loves about the series. It's got so much heart and spectacle, and it truly deserves to be the best finale in the Kingdom Hearts series. Coming off of that last note, I think that's what's so important about the finales of Kingdom Hearts. Like, they all represent the heart and soul that makes fans love these games. I had so much fun ranking all of these fights, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it along with me. That being said, please share your ranking with me in the comments. Whatever that be, just your favorite, your top 5, or all 20 plus fights. Let me know, as I would love to hear yours. While you're there, please do hit that like and subscribe, as that really does help the growth on the channel, as well as follow me over on Twitter and Twitch for any channel updates and just personal fun with the live streams. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in Quadratum, fellow masters.